morning. How good does it feel to be part of a church that doesn't wait for the meeting to start? They're over here like, we'll start without you. And they've already laid hands on Gloria and prayed, and there was oil, and I love being with women like that. Thank y'all for being like that. That's a blessing. Today is second to last, right? So the semester ends next week. I'm going to kind of punctuate Ecclesiastes, and then my mentor, Gloria Cotton, is going to introduce the Song of Solomon this week, and then she's going to wrap it next week. And we're doing food, right? Yeah, okay. I already promised Gloria your food, so yeah, we'll do food. So no sign up because no, everybody writes to be determined, but do your food thing next week, and we'll fill it up back there. We'll review a little bit. We intentionally designed, we really sat down and looked at what books of the Bible were laid out in our workbooks and mapped it out as strategically as we could so that you guys had built-in breaks, which we call catch-up, like built-in catch-up weeks. And then, we ended at a decent time for moms who are going into spring break and summer and all that. But Victoria reminded me, because she came in kind of partial way, and she said, this is perfect because I'm going to use from our wrap-up through the summer. We'll start back in like September, right? August, September. The videos, any link you get sent with a video, if you click on it, it'll take you to Courtney's YouTube channel. All the videos are there. So if you have the workbooks, you can play catch up all summer long. If you came in halfway, you can just backfill and you'll be caught up right to where we are. So summer homework, if you want it. Okay. I think is that everything? We'll try to have the schedule put together for the fall semester when we come next week. So we sort of have it mapped out and we know when we're starting in the fall and when we're wrapping up and all that. Anything else? Am I forgetting anything? If you're not on the email list, you need to make sure you see Beth so that you have links to videos and all that stuff. Okay, let's wrap up Ecclesiastes. How was it? Good? Really? Did you love it as much the second time? You did. If you weren't here last week, Sadie was saying it was sort of her entry point into getting introduced to the kingdom. You were in full addiction, right? So you were in addiction, stumbled on the book of Ecclesiastes, and felt some sense of like honesty. I'm paraphrasing what she said, but like, oh, he's not sugarcoating everything. He actually knows the real deal. Never heard anybody say, oh, my entry point was, I kind of heard the gospel for the first time in Ecclesiastes. That's a wild testimony. But it's evidence that he knows his creation. He knows every question we're going to ask and what we're going to loop, and he's not afraid of it. He'll put a whole book in there for you and go, hey, if you set your mind to assessing this thing that I created, if you set all of your heart and all of your mind, because remember, it's most likely Solomon that's writing this, who asked for wisdom. And God said, I'll give it to you. And not only that, I'll give you all the riches. I'll give you everything this world has to offer. It's yours because you asked for wisdom. So it's most likely this man who was apportioned more wisdom than any human being is apportioned. And God validated it and said with his own mouth, I'm back, I'll sign that check for you. Here you go. Wisdom is yours. And so it's a book assessing the meaning, purpose, what's all this about from probably one of the wisest humans to ever walk on this planet. But his assessment is taking place when he has somehow distanced himself. He's got more wives than anybody can count. And he's been influenced by their pagan theology and things. So he has, we discussed this last week, this is sort of a review. He mentions God throughout the book. But what version of God does he mention? There's Elohim and there's Jehovah. And he uses the phrase Elohim, meaning the creator, the guy who started all this, that's off over there. That's his vantage point. It's a man out from underneath fellowship, trying to find the meaning of life by using only the variables that are under the sun. And he comes up with, maybe it's in work. Set your hand to work and work, except you have pleasure in it for a while and fruit, and then you realize you're gonna die, and it's all gonna, remember I gave you the summary of my child. For those of you that weren't there, it's a good story. You should go back and watch that video. Oakley will tell you what the book of Ecclesiastes is all about. You're all gonna die. But, you know, he assesses life through the lens of, okay, maybe it's all about work, setting your hand to toil and getting pleasure from your work. Except you don't get to keep it, and you only get pleasure out of it for a little while, and then you pass it to a wise man or a fool, and the world keeps spinning around. And so that's meaningless. And maybe it's in wine and pleasure, and we're just here to enjoy the heck out of it. And he assesses life from that vantage point. Just pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. And same thing happens. It just gets less and less pleasing to him, and the world keeps spinning around, and nothing is enduring. There's no sustaining meaning for him. Maybe it's in women. Maybe it's in knowledge and wisdom, and I can just intellectually ascend into some place where my soul will be satisfied. Nothing. And it is a pessimistic loop of hopelessness. And in essence, what you can arrive at, it's not the place we build theology, because it's God telling us, this is what man will arrive at, should he search for meaning with only the variables under the sun. It's a loop that is hopeless, and there is no purpose or meaning, no sustenance that'll anchor a man's soul where he goes, I found it, and once I find this thing, the search is over. It's nothing. He cannot find that thing that ends the search for him. And it's God saying, this is what humans will arrive at, and acknowledging that. So there's some element of relief in it. But I didn't have a ton of new revelation to give you, because Gloria is going to fire hydrant you with the Song of Solomon. So I didn't want to overwhelm you. But I was sort of looking at this going, wow, that hopeless cycle, that loop, that humanistic loop is broken in this thing, because you have a God that started this book with, in the beginning, there's an actual starting point. This is not just an exhausting cycle that never ends and just loops in hopelessness. There was a beginning, and it started everything. And if there's a beginning, then there must be an end. And we call it the book of Revelation. But he basically says, hey, so the wisest man on the earth will tell you you're destined for hopeless looping. No meaning in it. You're destined for it. That's all you can, that's the best you can hope for, is this hopeless loop. But this thing, eternity, will tell you, I have a beginning, I scripted an end. And one of Solomon's most famous, or the wise writer of this, we assume is Solomon, one of the most famous things he says in here is, there's nothing new under the sun. It's all the same old looping. Nothing new under the sun. Chasing after the wind. It's all vanity, vanity, vaporous. It's all looping. And he says there's nothing new under the sun. But the revelation I got this week was, this is a man writing this that has no idea there's the human flesh and blood of God waiting on the other side of the sun to put his feet down. It's been prophesied, but he's not writing with Messiah in his mind. So he's saying, I've looked around, guys, I've assessed it. I have everything this world has to offer, and it's meaningless, and it's hopeless. But the variable he does not have in view is God Almighty was the lamb slain before the foundation of the earth, and he's standing there waiting. Come on, cut me loose. I'm the new thing that's going to go under the sun, change the whole system. So there's a beginning, and there'll be an end. And he puts his foot down here, and this looping ends. This looping ends, and we go into glory. Stuff that may or may not be scripted in here. And he undoes that loop. Boom. Because Solomon was not factoring in. Because Jesus himself wasn't under the sun yet. Prophesied, but he had a distant, he was not holding that in view. And so we are not destined for Ecclesiastes. This is what you get when you decide, I'll make sense of it with what's under the sun, with what's right here. And this is the loop, men. This is the best they get. I asked my husband, I said, what was it? Because he met the Lord in his 20s. And so he had a very marked, it wasn't, I was raised in church and I gradually came into salvation. He had a really marked, I did not believe any of this, and then in an instant, I did. And he said, oh, that's a good question. He said, I do remember I could not physically do the things, the drinking, the parties, so much of the things that it was just what you did. It was the only thing available for pleasure and excitement. And he was like, it was sucked dry of all satisfaction because this door had been opened, like the wardrobe in Chronicles of Narnia, and he's seen a whole world that you can actually do things that have eternal value. And they end with time here, but they actually are thrown at the feet of Jesus, and there's actually an eternal accounting of your life, and you're not just left to short-term pleasure. You now have eternal accounting for your life and an eternal impact. And the satisfaction of that made everything else, I could not physically be satisfied by these things. So, that's my wrap-up of Ecclesiastes. Kind of exciting. And we're going to do small groups, real short. Let's come back in here at 10 after. Give you like 25 minutes. Is that okay? And then we'll give Gloria the rest of the time to take us into Song of Solomon. Sound good? Yeah. Amen.